gaming industry is one of the most dominant entertainment genres today. FII Levin has a fascinating role at Griffin Gaming Partners, who are active in the crossover of the entertainment and video game industries.
The gaming industry itself has some gobsmacking statistics. We're talking 1/3 of the world's population plays games for an hour a day. Currently, it's addressing 3.4 billion gamers, and that number is going to skyrocket close to 5 billion over the next dozen years.
Peter, thank you very much for your time. Will you just flesh out for us what that means, being at that intersection?
We sit right at that intersection of gaming, media, and sport. If you look at today's global media landscape, for example, the last 3 years in a row, the #1 streaming show on the global streaming platforms has been titles based on games. This year, Fallout on Amazon based on the game. Last year, The Last of Us on HBO Max based on a game. And the year before that, it was The Witcher on Netflix, originally based on a graphic novel, then parlayed into a game, and the series was actually based on the game. 3 of the top 10 films at the box office last year based on video games, Super Mario, Gran Turismo, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Has it taken longer for that to happen than you think? I mean, if you look up when Fallout first came out as a game, I mean, we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years ago. Has that process taken longer than you anticipated?
No, and I think it's healthy that it's taken as long as it has. I think some of the early incarnations, adaptations of gaming intellectual property fell short, and I think those were opportunistic shots on goal that really didn't come from authentic passion for the root intellectual property. Whereas today, when you're looking at the showrunners in television or the directors and the writers and the producers in film, these are a constituency that grew up playing games. So in years past, you would see the origin intellectual property come from, whether it's a magazine or a newspaper article or a book or more linear forms of content, whereas now these were folks who spent their childhood playing these games, immersing themselves in these worlds, getting invested in these characters, and the results now show up on screen.
So it's actually a natural progression, as you say, of what they went through the childhood and the sort of experiences that they were having. Naturally, they would take them into their filmmaking days.
Exactly. You know, when you spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours playing a game, and that's what people do when they discover a game to their liking, and they play it across decades. That investment is now, again, showing up in that end product. And I think that's good for everybody because it drives tens of millions of eyeballs going in either direction. Fallout's a great example. The success of that series is going to lead to a tremendous amount of top-line revenue. It's going to lead to the long tail who played the games in years past, whether that was Fallout 1, 2, 3, 4, Fallout 76, Fallout Vegas. They're going to rediscover their passion for that game, but it's also going to turn over a completely new consuming constituency to that game. If you think about the sales of the soundtrack, it was tracking in the top 10 of all the global music streaming platforms as well after the show was released. So there's all kinds of ways to triangulate on that intersection with respect to that audience.
And it probably means that sector gets bigger and bigger, doesn't it, as well?
It does. Well, the gaming industry itself has some gobsmacking statistics. We're talking 1/3 of the world's population plays games for an hour a day. Currently, it's addressing 3.4 billion gamers, and that number is going to skyrocket close to 5 billion over the next dozen years, with markets like Middle East, North Africa, the Indian subcontinent, and Africa proper continuing to come online and mature. Yeah, the numbers are going to expand, the TAM is expanding, and that's going to provide more opportunities for these adaptations in different media form factors, whether that's publishing, podcasts, streaming, film, you name it.
So that's obviously a big development in the gaming industry. What are the other big developments you'd like to highlight?
You know, I think I touched on one, which are emerging markets. You know, we spend a lot of time now covering the Middle East, North Africa, Indian subcontinent. We've made multiple investments there. You know, Africa is going to be incredible over the next decade to 15 years. The consumption patterns in these emerging markets, the demographics, but also it's really mobile gaming that's driving a lot of this consumption in these emerging markets, which has also led to the female cohort engaging gaming in a way that they've not before. And if you look at years past, 12 years ago, I think the number is just around 10% of gamers globally were female, and that number was around 1.2 billion. You know, today you've got 3.4 billion, and just about 50% of them are female.
Has the gaming industry done anything specific to try and change that, or was that just natural evolution, if you like?
I think it's been a bit of both. I think there's been some incredible female entrepreneurs. Rena Onur out of Turkey, for example. She was a co-founder of Peak Games, which sold to Zynga for 1.8 billion. She's regarded as one of the top 10 mobile executives in the world. You've got Sarah Bond at Microsoft, who's the number 2 in their gaming group. So I think also as women have matriculated up the ladder and they have a larger voice, that's definitely been a deliberate source of activity. But also, yes, in these emerging platforms, you now have developers and publishers realizing, hey, we're leaving a lot of money on the table, ignoring this demographic.
What about in this part of the world in particular?
Possibilities here are incredible throughout all of Middle East, North Africa. When you have countries like KSA with, 70% of the population under the age of 40, I've spoken at multiple conferences here. I've been coming to the region for a very long time. In the last several years, if you ask an audience of 100, 150, 200 people, how many of you game? Probably 90 or 95% of them will raise their hand. And then when you say things like, well, okay, for those of you who didn't raise your hand, do you have backgammon or chess or a crossword puzzle on your phone? And then all of a sudden, all the hands start to creep up. And so the numbers are incredible here. But it's also the passion for gaming. You have leadership in a lot of these countries that play games. And they appreciate anime and manga. And so this whole popular culture, this celebration of the popular culture arts, if you will, has taken hold here. So it's a very exciting place to be.
Peter, let's talk about AI. I know you can walk anywhere in the world without talking about AI, and it would seem to a lot of people that your business is tailor-made for AI. Give us what your thoughts are on where AI is going to go.
Well, I mean, not only are we embracing it, but we have embraced it. So I think gaming has been tip of the spear, quite frankly, in a lot of technological development that's consumer facing. But for the last 20 years, there have been NPCs or non-playable characters in all kinds of games, FIFA, Call of Duty. And so we've really led the charge in terms of verticals in media. But when you think about the practical application of AI in gaming, the creation of art assets, the ability for quality assurance, for example, QA in gaming really hasn't been touched in about 30 years. And so to be able to leverage AI, to be able to put together those data sets and figure out where the bugs are for customer acquisition, the ability to A/B test and figure out what are the optimal times of day to market to a consumer, what are the right geographies, what are the right demographics. These are the types of things we're incredibly excited about with respect to the practical application within the gaming industry.
Do you have any reservations about AI in your industry?
We really don't. I mean, there's no cynicism from our orientation, but again, I think that may come from the fact that we've been embracing AI for a couple of decades now. The trepidation we have, we want to be cautious about investing in hype cycles. And so gaming has been a magnet for what we call the shiny toy syndrome, for tourist capital. So, if you look at how much money was poured into VR when VR really wasn't ready for prime time. VR seems to be 5 years away from being 5 years away. There were metaverse, hyperbole, right? Crypto, and now AI. Now there are things in and around all of those buckets that are very underwritable. But I think just being cautious about the hype cycle and not chasing that tourist capital is something that we're obviously cognizant of, but having been invested in the sector for as long as we have, we're pretty sure we're going to avoid those pitfalls.
Peter, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.